Yeah! Coming to you live from WRUE in Tennessee. It's the Scribbling Woman.
Hi, I'm Nancy Rue. You're a scribbling woman too, so welcome back to Women Creating Writerly Lives. In our last episode, number 61, we jacked up the tension in our stories until we were biting our fingernails and pulling at our eyebrows. Or we would have been if we hadn't known that our protagonist's hidden need was going to be met as a result of all those conflicts and obstacles.
But wait, there's more.
Yes, there absolutely is. And I'm going to illustrate. You may remember the 1980s film with Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas called Romancing the Stone. It's an absolute must-see for every writer as we watch the character, Joan Wilder, an author, take both an inner and an outer journey that is both suspenseful and hilarious. How can it not be when Danny DeVito joins the cast? So as the movie opens, Joan is writing the final chapter of her latest formula romance, right? The protagonist, Angelina, has just whipped a knife out of her garter and stabbed a villain in the heart, as well she should, because not only was he holding a shotgun on her, but he had killed her father, raped her sister, and stolen her Bible. Angelina is feeling triumphant as she grabs her bag and leaves the premises. And we think, yes, this is it. This is the climax. Except she looks up on the ridge and there are the silhouettes of 5 more villains, just like the one she just stabbed. And she says, there is one true law of the West. Bad guys have brothers who seem to ride forever. Ah, yes, this is the climactic moment for Angelina and the beginning of a journey for Joan. And it's the beginning of the next segment of our process, too. We aren't quite finished making our beloved protagonist work for that satisfying ending. Today, we're going to focus on 2 aspects that will, yes, cause the character even more angst, but create a journey that will make the protagonist and you and your readers at the end go, yes, finally, that's it. That's the only way it could be. The creation of this journey is important for both the intentional writers and the intuitive writers among you and everybody on the ribbon in between. If you're an intentional writer like me, you'll map all of this out ahead of time, probably, with maybe some tweaking along the way. Intuitive writers will simply do this as you go along, but do it, we must. The first focus is raising the stakes. You thought it was bad before. Raising the stakes is making what matters to the protagonist matter more and more and more. The consequences of those obstacles not being resolved or the goal not being met have to be such that the reader will keep turning the pages even when the spouse is clamoring for supper and the children are either bleeding, puking, or have a fever of over 102. This isn't just about making the situation worse, which we talked about last time, but making sure that that worsening has an impact on the protagonist's future. Do you remember Susie Smo? We've been using her as a protagonist throughout this series. She's the one who is kind of a rule-keeping church lady with a wall of convictions, which she has everybody else lined up against like they're about to be fired on by a firing squad. So, in Susie's story, it's not just about having Susie Schmo's husband walk out on her. What's at stake if he walks out? And by the way, who can blame him? Is it her self-esteem? Is it her livelihood? Is it her relationship with her kids? Is it her permission to even see her kids? Remember Harold P. Schwartz? He's the nurse practitioner who's on a leave of absence because something happened in the ER that may or may not have been his fault. And sure, it's a bummer if Harold P. Schwartz's wife finds out he's been having an affair with the sexy little phlebotomist. But what's at risk for Harold if she does find out? Is her dad about to bankroll his dream of going to medical school? Is he probably going to get fired completely because that sexy little phlebotomist is his boss's wife? Oh, yeah. Raising the stakes is about what the protagonist has to lose. Well, how do we get there, especially if you're not naturally a sadistic person? There are 5 basic questions we can ask ourselves to help raise those stakes. Now, some of these you may have already entertained when we talked about turning points and about increasing the tension. This list of questions then for you will be a matter of checking to make sure that what happens really matters. Okay, question number 1. The stakes are usually raised by a failure or a setback. So can you gradually take the consequences of that failure to the next level and the next and the next? So it's not just more misery in Susie's marriage, it's a divorce. It's not just Harold's private betrayal, it's the public humiliation in the healthcare community. For your protagonist, it's not just a temporary injury, it might be a permanent disability, or they come close to death. Yeah, the situation gets worse, and the consequences of not rectifying that situation are heightened. If that isn't bad enough, question 2, what is the worst that could happen if this isn't resolved? And then threaten to make it happen, or why not make it happen? So Susie tries to make up with her husband and only validates his issues with her. Do you remember she goes to his apartment, and while he's trying to explain where he's coming from, she's mopping the floor and doing his dishes. So he says it's definitely over. And he'll pay child support, but not spousal support, which means she has to get a job, which means her view of herself as total wife and mother is wiped out in one fell swoop. And if she can't get a job, he'll have the kids come and live with him. Now, Harold has to take a job while he's on a leave of absence, and the only thing he can get is taking care of 2 cantankerous elderly people. Okay, so that's inconvenient, but if he doesn't make a go of it, he's out of options. He won't get his wife back. His dream of medical school is completely off the table, and those 2 rich people are influential. Bad reviews from them could totally ruin him in the medical profession. Okay, bad enough? Oh no. Question number 3. If the stakes only affect the protagonist, then make them affect someone he or she loves, and then the whole family, and maybe even the community. Susie's divorce is going to wreak havoc with her kids. Her daughter's going to go off the rails. She starts smoking pot in the girls' restroom. She's suspended from school, threatened with expulsion, and maybe even a criminal record. Now, in trying to help her daughter and make money to support them, Susie takes a job working with at-risk kids. One of them gets attached to her. If Susie fails her, she contributes to a larger problem. Now back to Harold. Harold recognizes the signs that his old lady and old man, who he's really kind of beginning to really be fond of, suffered elder abuse at the hands of their previous caregiver, but they had too much pride to press charges. So he puts himself on the line for them. How that turns out matters to them and to the whole elder care system. Bad enough? Nah. Question number 4. How can you put your protagonist in a situation where there is no clear-cut choice? It's not black and white. Make sure somebody's going to suffer no matter what he or she does. So if Susie takes this at-risk girl into her home, her own kids are going to suffer from her divided attention. But if she doesn't, the girl will probably end up on the streets again and once more think she's not worthy of being taken care of. When Harold is offered a place at med school because his wife, who is beginning to reconcile with him, says daddy will go to bat for him, if he takes it, then he'll have to leave the old couple. And the old man is dying. He doesn't want to leave the old lady alone. But if he doesn't, that wife that he's being reconciled with will suffer the disappointment of having stood up for him only to have him turn away from it. And she is, after all, rather a social climber. She doesn't want a nurse for a husband. She wants a doctor. Okay, that's pretty bad. And then finally, question 5 to ask yourself, how can you increase the levels of sacrifice required of the protagonist? Make what he or she has to give up more and more personal, steadily more vital. If your protagonist runs the risk of sacrificing himself or herself entirely, so much the better. Susie does sacrifice her new job to focus on her daughter who needs her. That means she sacrifices keeping her son with her because there won't be enough money for all 3 of them. He'll go to his father's now. And that means she really sacrifices her former view of herself as a mother. Harold sacrifices medical school for the time being to stay with the old lady. That means he also sacrifices his chance of getting back together with his social climbing wife. Yeah, things are bad. There is no doubt about that. But as Jim said, there's more, because that leads up to the second focus, which is the bleakest moment. And I promise you, now we're there, okay? This moment presents the worst obstacle of all, when it seems hopeless to keep moving forward, but the protagonist can't just say, oh, well, I'm going to go back to the way things that were before, because there is no back to go to. What makes this so bleak, so intense, is that despite of all the raising of the stakes, both public and private, all the sacrifices, the protagonist has grown closer to meeting that hidden need. Susie's watched her wall of convictions crumble, and she's seeing herself as truly caring and compassionate rather than just the enforcer of the rules. Harold's had to let go of his pride enough to realize he's an authentic caregiver, not just a ladder climber. We're so close to that final stretch to the truth, and then something happens that makes that seem impossible. It's painful. That's the bleakest moment. Susie gets a visit from CPS. And while she's trying to explain to the social worker what her daughter has been through and what she herself is trying to do to help her, her daughter overhears, misinterprets something she says, and runs away. Harold is accused of trying to help the old lady to die by giving her a dose of morphine that's stronger than she needs so that he then can go on to medical school. That's bleak. If you don't think you can take yourself and your protagonist there, I'm going to give you 4 qualifications. If you meet these, you're going to be okay. 1, it can't be resolved too quickly. It's not, oh my gosh, I know what to do, and there you go. Secondly, it can't be solved by a rescue. Even, as we'll talk about next time, if there's help from an unexpected source that shows the protagonist how to resolve things using what they've learned. That's for next time. Right now, there is no rescue. Third qualification is it allows the meeting of the hidden need to be apparent and possible. I'm going to give you a little forecast from next week, okay? So you won't leave this episode completely depressed. Susie is about to break down. Then Jamaica. Remember Jamaica? She is the recovering drug addict that Susie has befriended. She reminds Susie that Susie now knows her daughter better than she ever did because she's gotten herself out of the way. And Susie realizes she knows exactly where her daughter is hiding. She finds her and she tells her, babe, there are no rules for this. We're just going to get through it together. Oh my gosh, I need to write that story. Harold thinks he's done. It's over on so many levels. But then he finds a note that the old man left him before he passed. And it says, Harold, never forget who you really are. Then Harold uses his expertise rather than his pride to prove that he is not the one who gave the old lady an overdose. And he knows who did. That sexy little phlebotomist is ubiquitous. Now, okay, we know that has to be stark enough, okay? Fourth qualification, that bleakest moment has to be stark enough to make the resolution delicious. We want our readers breaking out into a sweat, but they can't stop reading even though it's 2 a.m. Now, as delicious as raising the stakes and creating a bleakest moment is for some of us, it requires Xanax for others. So never fear. All right. Next time, we're going to talk about the realm of the third act where the hidden need is met, where some, but not all, of the threads are tied up. And when you get to type the end, and like Joan Wilder in Romancing the Stone, you get to weep, blow your nose on a piece of scrap paper because you haven't had time to buy Kleenex, and you say to your cat, oh, that's so good. Until then, if you want to dwell on this raising the stakes in the bleakest moment a little bit more, I have some recommended reading for you. In The Scribbling Woman, Interactive Companion, Chapter 27 is your go-to chapter. It talks about going deep, not just into your protagonist, but into yourself, because that's where this all comes from. You can also check out Writing the Breakout Novel Workbook by Donald Moss. There were decades when I never wrote a novel without completing that workbook first. If you'd like to dwell more on the questions that we've been pondering here, those questions are included in the description of the episode on YouTube. So you simply go to the episode, Scroll down in the description and all the questions are there. You can probably even print them out or do a screenshot. If you'd like a list of all of the episodes that are available to you, they're listed by category on a PDF. So you simply go to my website, nancyrue.com/podcast, and click download, and there you go. They're all listed by category. The suggested episodes related to this one are number 35 and number 36. And Scribblies, may only your protagonist moments be bleak, as you, of course, scribble on.